Hey everyone, this is Jack Bourne, founder of Deadline Funnel, and I'm here with a Deadline Funnel client who is going to share some of the brilliance that she has that has to do with writing super persuasive emails. So I'm very excited to have Abbi Perets on the call. Let me tell you a little bit about Abbi, and then I'm going to hand it over to her. So Abbi Perets is a copywriter with 20 years of experience working with some of the biggest brands in the world. She's passionate about writing email sequences and sales pages that help people get their courses, services, and products in front of the people who need them most. Abbi's signature approach comes down to building powerful, long-lasting relationships with readers so that they open every email you send. Abbi, great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited.
So before we jump in, why don't you give us the Cliff Notes version of where someone would be able to find you, the audience that you currently serve, and yeah, why don't we start there?
Sure. So like you said, I've been a copywriter for 20 years, more than 20 years at this point. Wow. And writing is all I've ever known. And I'm all about relationships with people. So currently I work with women who want to start, grow, and scale freelance writing businesses. And as I was building my own business, I stumbled on the fact that I really liked writing sales pages and email sequences. And I saw that other course creators who were not necessarily writers struggled with that piece. For me, that was a light bulb moment. I was like, oh, look, this is easy and fun for me. And it is not easy and fun for other people. So after being a freelance writer for many, many, many years, I finally figured out that you should actually niche down and specialize in one thing. And I began doing that. And once I began doing that, I, one, got really good at it, and two, got really known for it. So I've written funnels for, 2 Comma Club Award winners, and people who are big and famous in their spaces. And that's been a lot of fun. I'm at successfulfreelancemom.com, and I'm very findable online. I'm like the only Abbi Perets in the whole world. So if you Google me, you find me, and you can talk to me about your email and whatever. And I'm just crazy about building relationships through email. That's my thing.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So when you say building relationships through email, give me a sense of what we're talking about.
Sure. I think of email as something that's incredibly intimate because the vast majority of us read email on our phones. I don't know about you, but I have 5 children and my phone is full of pictures of them. So when you send me email and I'm reading that on my phone, you are now sharing space with my beautiful children, my wonderful husband, the people and things that I care most about. So I feel like it's a really intimate relationship. You're in the bathroom with me in the morning. You're in my bed with me at night, right? So if you look at the relationship that way, every word that you're writing, there's got to be a lot of care that goes into it. And you've got to remember that there's a real person on the other end of that email. And equally important, that it's a single person who's reading the email. Yes, you may have a list of thousands. And still, when you write an email, you don't want to say things like, you guys. This is a very small example, right? But you want to remember that this is being read by a single person who wants to feel unique, like an individual. And I think that's a really important starting point.
That's a great tip. It's one that it's always good to have a checklist of things that you want to, after you've written the email. I find that it's useful to have these reminders to go back through, because even after all these years of marketing and writing my own emails, sometimes I will find things like you guys and you all and things of that nature. So I totally agree. It needs to feel like a one-to-one communication to have the maximum impact in terms of relationship. What are some other things that you feel like you do especially well and that you teach people when it comes to writing better emails?
Yeah. So again, on the one person front, we spend a lot of time building out ideal client avatars. That's something that's taught particularly in the online business world. And I don't spend any time on that. I focus on real people instead. I think that it's super important to have regular conversations with the people you're serving. And then when you're writing email, you're writing to a specific person. So I would literally, like, if you're having a conversation with several of your, audience members, students, whatever you call them, and you're talking to Jane and Susan and Phil, then I would sit down and I would write an email to Jane, an email to Susan, and an email to Phil. And then afterwards, you can kind of come and tweak things as needed to make it more accessible. But if you start with writing to an actual human, a single actual human who you've had this conversation with and who you might have the inside jokes with and the history and the backstory with, that's going to make your email way more real and effective. And on that, along that same line, I hate the word I in email and in sales page in general, like in marketing writing. Like, it's not about you, the writer. You want to use the word you, meaning the reader, right? So you want to draw them into the story and really make them the hero of the story. This is supposed to be about them, not about you. So whenever possible, I literally replace the word. Sometimes it's very simple, like instead of I'm going to teach you, like you're going to learn, right? But that's basic. It's more like if you want to tell the story of, oh my God, last week was the worst. I had the flu, plus 2 of my long-term clients ditched me and I never want to get out of bed again. So presumably you don't want to send an email just to say, I've quit my business. Good luck, everybody. Bye. Right? Like, you want to teach something, like what you did to come out of that. So if instead of telling that story about you, if you frame it up as, hey, did you ever have a week where you get the flu and this other stuff happens and you feel like you just want to die and you want to crawl into bed and never get out again? And here's what you can do. So putting your reader right into that situation where they can, oh my God, yes, last week, oh my God, it was the worst. Like, rather than this happened to you, the writer, put them into that story and let them recognize themselves in it. I think that makes a massive difference in how connected you are to them.
It's a really powerful tip, and I really love the examples, because you read my mind. I was wondering how, if you ever tell stories about yourself, how do you do that without using the first person pronoun? But let me push back a little bit more. Do you in your emails, and maybe you don't, but do you in your emails ever share a story of something that happened in your life in which you actually want to bring them into, like, hey, this crazy thing happened, and then here's the lesson for you?
Yes, absolutely. I do think that being personal and like, I'm not saying never, ever use the word I. So again, for example, I have 5 children, and in particular, one of my children is intellectually disabled, has significant special needs, and has to work harder than most of the people in the world. There are a lot of lessons for life and for business that come out of that. So I've told many times in email and in speaking and whatever, the story of how my son learned to tie his shoes. And I liken this to when people say, basically when it happened, and I was telling people that at the same time that he learned to tie his shoes, he also learned to send written text. This was like a huge deal. Literally the first time I got a text from my son, I was on a walk in my neighborhood. I remember exactly where I was. I fell down in the street. I was like that bowled over by getting a written text from my son. It was powerful. And I tell that story, and when I started telling people, yeah, he learned to tie his shoes and he learned to text, they were like, oh, wow, what happened that all of a sudden he did those things? And I was like, oh, no. This was not all of a sudden. This was 14, 15 years of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, developmental therapy. There was no, and it's the same thing that happens, when somebody makes it big in the online business world, like, oh, what did you change? What was the one thing? No, there was no one thing. So when I tell that story, it's certainly, I'm talking about my particular son. I'm not, hey, did you ever have a son with special needs? No, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not crazy. So I tell that personal story. I tell that personal story. What I don't want to do is have all of my email all the time be about me. So I think that when there's a story that, is very personal, one, I'm a chronic overshare. It doesn't bother me to tell people like what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. And I assume that people are fascinated by me and want to know all the things. And also I remember that people do not always want to know what's happening in my world and my mind, and they care about themselves. So when I do tell a story that is personal, there's a reason. I'm not telling it just because I like attention, which I do, but I'm also telling it because I think there's a benefit, and I'm going to draw that line very clearly, what I think you can learn from this.
Yeah, that's great. Do you pay attention to the verb tense that you use in your emails? And if so, do you prefer past tense, present tense? or does it depend on the situation?
Excellent.
We're going super geeky here.
Yeah, we are. I love it. That is an excellent question. I have to say, it's not something that I'm typically consciously thinking about when I'm writing an email. That is definitely more of a thing that after I've written something and I let it sit for a few days and I come back to it, those are the kinds of things that I am looking for to tighten up. I definitely prefer, for the most part, I'm for the most part present tense. I want to, kind of put people there in the moment. If it's a story where I am specifically trying to give distance, then the past tense works better. If I want to show that, that I'm reflecting on something that happened, then yeah, I want to be using past tense. But for the most part, if I'm trying to drive urgency and to help people see where action is necessary, then I like present tense. Maybe it's even present progressive. I'm not a great grammar person.
Yeah. We don't have to get that geeky. Okay. So something that I hear a lot of our clients will say that they struggle with, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because of course I have mine, but I want to hear yours. The thing that they struggle with sometimes is whether it's in a webinar or in an email series, but especially let's keep it to emails. They feel like, okay, there's a few days of teaching and then I'm supposed to go into salesmanship mode. And so how do I make that transition? How many days? And so I've got my answer to that, but what is yours? How do you set up your process so that it's not just that you're making a connection for the sake of making a connection, but also, yes, you want the bond, but also these are business related emails and you want to, and it's not just about making money for you. You're having this incredible impact on your clients, and it helps to be able to bring them across the, from looky-loo to someone who's in and committed.
And I think that's where I start. I start with, I truly believe in what I'm selling and how it can help people. And I only work with clients I'm fortunate that I'm in a place in my business where I can be extremely selective, and I only work with a handful of clients a year. And I only work with people if I truly believe that their course, product, service, whatever is genuinely helping people. And if they actually, as a human, are a decent human and care about other people. So it starts from there. Like, do you actually have a product or service that's genuinely helping people? And then do you believe in it? Like, if you don't believe in it, how are you ever going to get somebody else? When I talk about my course, I'm like, I would marry my course if I could. Like, it's so awesome. It's the greatest. I love it so much. And I really I sit up at night and think about my course, and I love it. And I love the impact that it has. So that's a big piece right there. Second, I'm so into transparency and honesty, and don't lie. Like, seriously, don't lie, because the moment you lie to people, they're going to find out, you're going to lose their trust, and it's dumb. So, so don't do it. So from the beginning, let them know, hey, I also have a thing, like, I'm going to give you stuff here, and I'm here for a reason, and I'm not only after your money. And also, I have something that I'm going to show you that you have the opportunity to buy, purchase, enroll in, however you want to phrase that. So be clear about that and honest about that from the beginning. And it's not so much like a value, transition sales. Like, it's more of a jumble. It's more of like, even while you're providing value and building connection, you also want to be bringing in little things about the course. We go into more detail in this inside of my program, or my student so-and-so, or this experience. Like, some of that storytelling should be things that have actually happened this morning, I was checking my Facebook messages in bed, as I do. And this woman posted an automated post in my Facebook group, like, what's your biggest success of the year? And this one woman posted, I took my business from 6,000 annually to 30,000 annually. And that's all thanks to you. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. And also not all thanks to me. Like, you're the person who showed up and did the work. Maybe I showed you the way, but you came in and did this. And so talk about those kinds of things, use those kinds of stories to show, when you are focused and all in and you're invested in this and you've got skin in the game, you're going to do incredible things. You're going to change your life.
Yeah, I love your energy and your enthusiasm. I mean, your passion for what you do just absolutely shines through. But to your specific answer, that really is exactly my philosophy, which is that there is no, I avoid the question, like I flip it around and just change the question. There is no day where you're just pure teaching and then you transition to, okay, now it's time to start selling. Like you're actually selling while you're teaching and teaching while you're selling. Like it should be all combined together. So I 100% agree. And I think that's an amazing answer. What are some other things that you see people struggle with when it comes to writing emails, particularly emails that are, they're even if they're not trying, they're not putting the link for the purchase page in that email, it's setting up, it's leading towards an eventual sale. Do you see something that a lot of people struggle with that you've figured out a way around?
I think that a lot of people don't take advantage of what an email service provider can do and the information that it can give you. I think that segmenting your audience, that is separating them out. So if you have people who are, I have a client who teaches coding. I'm going to get this wrong. It's very, very technical coding stuff. He teaches Python to a lot of different groups, right? So he teaches to university students, he teaches to professional developers, professors, he teaches to entrepreneurs, and he teaches to, there's another one, researchers. And so he does a lot of segmentation so that when you are talking to people, the examples that you're pulling are going to be more related to them. So yes, it shows up in little ways of personalization. Like if they've self-identified as a student or a researcher, we're saying, researchers like you or students like you. And then the examples that we're bringing in, we're showing them success stories from students like them or researchers like them, based on that segmentation. So I think that taking advantage of the information that you can get when you are using automation tools is massively important and helps structure the story more effectively. If you know that your person is brand new to the world of online business and has never made that first $1,000, that's a very different person to the six-figure slayer who's out there like trying to grow to seven figures, right? Maybe you have something that serves both of them. You can't talk to both of them exactly the same way. They're at a different place in the journey. And you've got to, if you're giving this brand new person examples of six-figure scaling to seven, this was me in the beginning, not so long ago, right? Like 2017, I'd listen to podcasts and I'd read blog posts, and they were all about like, I made $750,000 on my first launch and now I'm scaling and blah, blah, blah. I was like, it's so intimidating that I just want to close the computer and go to bed. Like, I'm not going to do that. What is that? Like, what is that? So if you have people who can talk to you at the level that you're at, and you can achieve that with asking really simple questions in early emails, and it doesn't have to be the focus of the email. A PS in an email, like, hey, can you click the link that best describes who you are right now? Or you don't even have to be that like obvious about it. If you have links within your email that are talking about, specific topics, and you just are recording where people are clicking and making tags based on that, okay, well, you're reading all the articles about how to get your first 1,000 subscribers. I can then assume that you are fairly new at this, and I can start targeting my content to you more specifically, versus if you are not clicking on any of the stuff and you're clicking on the scaling stuff, okay, now I know that you are in that space. So it's just using that information, being aware that information is out there, using that information and tailoring your content based on where somebody is in the journey. It makes such a difference in how they respond to you.
And this is great, because this really comes back to where we started with building relationships through email. Because if the email feels generic, or even worse, if you're talking to one type of person and giving examples that don't really relate, so for example, if you're to use your most recent example, if everything's about like you're at six figures trying to get to seven, like the person who's brand new, they're going to feel like this is not for me. And so, yeah, being able to segment it really is going to help build that relationship. Like, okay, I'm in the right place. This is relevant to me. I want to continue learning more. And this person obviously has helped a lot of other people like me, and it helps to build that relationship, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a big piece of it. So you've got to be constantly asking your people questions, right? You're not going to know about them unless you're asking them questions. And a huge mistake that I see people making is they'll say things like, hit reply and tell me. And then they don't do anything with those replies that people are sending in. Dude, if someone has taken the time to hit reply to your email and tell you something, one, the information is gold. Two, if you are in the beginning stages of your business, you are in a beautiful spot because you get to actually, on a day-to-day basis, engage with your audience. So you definitely want to be making a personal reply to that. And you can do that in several ways. I mean, one, you can just send an email back. I found that it is massively effective if you take 3 minutes and record a Loom video and send that back to your subscriber. Like, hey, Jane, oh my gosh, I loved your reply. So, and I'll just have their reply right up there on the screen with my face down in the corner. And I'm like, I got your reply. I love what you said about this and that. Here's what I did when I was in that situation. Let me know if that's helpful. They're like floored. They're like, oh my God, you wrote to me. And I mean, at this point in my business, I'm very fortunate. I don't have to handle the hello inbox on a day-to-day basis. I have someone who does that. And still, once a week, I do try to go in and do a couple of personal replies like that because it makes a massive difference in the way people perceive you. So do not say hit reply and tell me in your email if you don't intend to be replying and using that information in some way.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, I've found that at least for me, I haven't gotten a barrage of like replies back. So you might get 1 or 2% of people actually hitting reply. I guess it depends on where you're asking them to hit reply. But you're right. The information that comes back, sometimes you'll get a 300-word essay just chock full of really useful information. And I love the idea with the Loom video. So before we go, I wanted to circle back to something that you brought up before. We're going through a client avatar, ideal client avatar exercise right now. And so I get your point about thinking about a specific person. And we do a lot of client interviews. I get on Zooms with clients, and my team does as well, and they share those recordings. So we do a lot of these interviews. And so certainly there are people that we could think about that we're specifically writing to. I like that idea. So when you're writing your email, do you have? I really want to get into the nitty gritty. Do you have like a sort of a profile of an image of the person and their name and some of the details or do you just do this based on memory, like you're constantly writing to the same 3 people? I'm curious.
Yeah. So for me, for when I'm writing for my own emails, it is mostly based on memory. It's mostly based on extensive conversations that I've had with these people, and that kind of thing. When I'm doing this for clients, so I know their audiences less intimately than I know my own, let's say. So there, I do have. It's not like the classic, put up the picture. This is Jane. She's 43. Her favorite drink at Starbucks is a caramel macchiato. Like, I don't care. So it's more like I'll watch a lot of their videos. I'll watch a lot of the interviews that they've done. I'll read the information and I'll go over everything that the client has told me about their own customers. And I might have some notes written down, but I tend to be more of I want to base it on real interactions. So it is more coming from memory. I think that we run into trouble when we try to have those like pictures up on the wall, like, well, I want to remember my customers all the time. Well, you should remember them because you've interacted with them, is my opinion. And that probably doesn't work, for the Coca-Cola company at scale. And I might change my thinking as my own business grows and scales. But for now, I'm good with really basing things on genuine interaction. I just think it's better.
So when you write the email, let's say you're writing to Jane, and Jane is a real person that you've interacted with. Are you starting off, hey Jane,
literally, dear Jane, and I'm referencing like, oh my gosh, that story you told me about the guy in the bar who kept putting his hand on your knee and whatever. Like, okay, that's a weird story. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, like I'll literally reference those inside things and real conversations. And then again, I try to, another, by the way, reason that I love automation is I don't like to do things last minute. I'm not a like, please don't call me at 10 o'clock. Like I need an email to go out in an hour. I'm not your person. Right. So I work with clients who are, doing these evergreen programs and that kind of thing. So I will write email and let it sit for a few days and then come back to it and say, okay, well, this is a little bit too personal, not in the sense that it's revealing too much, in the sense that nobody else will understand it. So we have to take a step back. But it's usually not that far back that you have to go. We're looking for relatable, universal experiences. One of the ways that I explain this is one of my favorite books, high school, college, was The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. Amy Tan writes about the relationships between Chinese mothers and Chinese American daughters. And the specificity of the relationship, like the specific food and the expressions and the decorations in the home, the specificity there is what makes it universally applicable. Like as a Jewish American, whatever, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that's just like when my grandmother does XYZ. Like, because of the specificity of the situation, I could take it and extrapolate to my own universal experience, right? So I really do think that when you get into those very specific stories with very specific people, it allows the rest of us to see ourselves in that story.
That's great. Great tips. So let's leave it there. If someone wants to find out more about you, I know that you already mentioned your URL one time, but why don't you go ahead and mention your URL where people can find you?
Sure. Come and visit me at successfulfreelancemom.com. I am incredibly Googleable and findable, and I do answer a lot of my own email in an almost timely fashion. So there you go.
That's great. Well, I really, really enjoyed geeking out with you about email and storytelling. So I look forward to our next conversation on the topic. So thank you so much.
Thank you.